Sonny Melendrez, Sonny Radio, SonnyRadio.com.
Hello. This is Sonny Melendrez, and welcome to the positive side of the radio spectrum. And with this episode, we begin our third season of the radio show and podcast. And I cannot tell you how much, wait a minute, I guess I can tell you how much I appreciate all of your support, our listeners, literally all over the world. So I promise you that in this new season, we'll bring you even more entertainment, inspiration, and all through storytelling, fascinating guests, exclusive celebrity interviews, and all delivered with lots of enthusiasm. And I can't wait to introduce you to my first guest of the new season, Joe Serio. He's coming up next. But first, as always, and in the new year, we're brought to you by Ideal Precision Roofing, serving San Antonio, Boerne, and the Texas Hill Country. And if indeed one of your New Year's resolutions has been to check into the possibility of hail damage on your roof, well, you've come to the right place. Ideal Precision Roofing. They're ready to take your call, come out, give you a free inspection, and if indeed they find any damage, they'll contact your insurance company and get the ball rolling. You could have a new roof in a matter of days. And you're in good hands with Ideal, an Owens Corning Platinum Preferred Contractor, a designation given to only the top 1% of roofers in the nation. So call Ideal today at 210-485-1553. That's 210-485-1553. Or visit idealprecisionroofing.com and tell them that Sonny Melendrez sent you. And now, on with the show.
Sonny Radio, SonnyRadio.com.
Joe Serio is a full-time professional speaker, trainer, and author of 15 books and counting. He holds a Ph.D. in criminal justice with a specialization in leadership and organizational behavior. I met Joe at a National Speakers Association event in Austin. And the more I heard about his impressive background, the more intrigued I was. It is indeed a great pleasure to welcome Joe Serio to the show. Now, Joe, do you prefer doctor?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I prefer Joe. Thanks.
So great to have you here, Joe.
Thanks, Sonny.
Let me ask you, when you were a kid, did you always know what you wanted to be when you grew up?
You know, that's the short answer is yes, but I couldn't do it. So when I was growing up, I knew in my mind, I wanted to be a writer and a speaker. And I knew I wasn't able to do it because you can't make money writing. And I grew up in a large family with a Sicilian immigrant father. And, you know, at that time, it's, oh, you want to do photography? That can't make money. You want to do writing? That can't make money. Yeah. You want to write novels? That can't make money. On top of that, I was afraid of everything. So by the time I was 10, 12 years old, I had already shut off any dreams, if you asked me the question, what's possible? And that's what this all comes down to. I would have told you, number one, I would have given you a dream like, I want to be an airline pilot, knowing full well I would never be an airline pilot. I loved airplanes, but math, science, whatever, not my bag. But I never told people that I wanted to be a writer and I wanted to be a speaker, because by that young age, I had already convinced myself, and I think my environment had already convinced me that I can't do it, I won't be good enough. 97 is a failing grade, which was kind of the psychology in my house. So I put it away, and I basically turned myself off the way so many of us do. We get into the rhythm of the routine of life. And then one day we wake up and say, wait a second, I haven't done that thing. I'm tired of being tired, and I'm growing old very quickly. So enough is enough.
Well, that sets a stage for where we are right now. And for many people, they are in the in a maybe a crossroads in their life. We always tend to want to start over again, do something, dream big, and we don't know where to start. What I want to know is, knowing what I know about you as a child, at what point did you get over that hump and realize that maybe you could do that?
About 3 hours ago. No, no. No. It was a process of meeting people that convinced me that I could do it. But it didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen with just one person. It was years of people trying to convince me, because when we grow up, we have a ton of baggage, and we have this script in our heads that we have come to believe to be real and true. And the thing that I came to realize was, I, just like everyone else, made it all up. Right? We created our own fear based on our interpretation of what was happening around us at 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. That's when we create the story of who we think we have to be in order to be loved, in order to be lovable, in order to be accepted, in order to be acceptable. And we live out that story until we change that story. So I had people around me who, and it took a lot of convincing that I was okay, because at 18, 19, 20, 21, I was suicidal. I didn't believe that I could be. I didn't believe that I could write. I didn't believe that it would be good enough. And I didn't understand, because I couldn't answer the question, what's possible? And so I didn't have any imagination. I didn't feed a vision. I fed my self-pity and my pessimism, and the way so many of us create stories to keep us safe.
Yeah.
Because that's what our brain does. Our brain is designed to keep us alive and safe. Except that was, 100,000 years ago. And we're worrying about saber-toothed tigers and whatever else. And the fact of the matter is, this brain was created for something totally different that we use for today in an environment where it doesn't make sense. In a sense, if from that perspective of fear, it's not danger of being killed. It's fear of being embarrassed and rejected and kicked out of the tribe. And what if I'm not good enough? And what if they won't love me? That, to me, is one of the most powerful forces that act on individuals, that we really owe it to ourselves and owe it to each other to help ourselves and to help each other move through that space, because the power is in that movement. That's where everything happens.
And how do you start to do that?
Number one, I think, surround yourself with the right people. I have, the phrase that is popping in my head right now is ejected. I have ejected a number of people from my life. And it may not sound particularly nice, but the fact of the matter is, if you're around the wrong people who are not supporting you, if they're constantly naysaying about your dreams, it's a good time to stop listening to them.
Yeah.
And if it's your parents and you're still living at home, just smile and nod. Don't fight too hard with them about it, because if they don't understand your dreams, you're probably not going to convince them. So number one is surround yourself with good, optimistic, supportive people. And I continue to do that to this day, all the time. I'll tell you, just as an aside, one of the things that attracted me to you was your spirit. The reason I'm doing this interview and the conversations we've had in the past is this idea of positivity and being engaged and doing fun, cool thing. Yeah, that's what I want my life to be about. Why not?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one thing that I think has been prevalent in my whole life. And I often got criticism for it, and saying, people always say, nobody's that happy. Well, it's not a question of being that happy. It's a question of just being who you were meant to be, and also dreaming about what's next. And there's
Yes.
always a next. And for so many people, there is no next. So what do you say to someone who feels like they're stuck, or maybe they've had the wrong influences, even with their family, wanting to get out and get that dream to breathe?
Yeah. It really, one of the things I talk about in my classes and in my books is face the brutal facts, because face the brutal facts. And that is today, whatever day it is, right? The January 1, let's call it that. Today, January 1st. I've got these grand visions of what my year is going to be like or whatever. Or maybe I don't have any grand visions. One of the first places to start is to say, okay, where am I right now? How many pounds do I weigh? How many dollars do I have in the bank? Who's hanging around with me? What time do I wake up? What time do I go to bed? And start to understand that the habits that we have are the things that are driving our lives. And habits, by their definition, are things we don't think about that much, right? They're ingrained and we just do them, we do them. We have to short circuit that process of just doing the same old thing that we did yesterday, having the same old thoughts that we had yesterday. So my life started to change when I woke up earlier, when I lost weight. I lost 45 pounds. I started writing, and it took me from the time that I was in college when my English teacher said, wow, you're a good writer. And my high school English teacher said, oh, wow, you're a good writer. It took me a solid at least 10 years to really get the nerve to start poking at that. And to be honest, I didn't publish my first book with my name on it as a pure solo writer, solo author, until 2008. So I was 40 something. I just published a couple of months ago the book that I always wanted to write my entire life, The Vodka Hookers and the Russian Mafia, about my time living in Russia. But here's what my life has become about. My life is to interact with people and write and do training and leadership classes to hopefully get them to open up to the idea that they don't have to wait as long as I did. Because their life is actually, this may sound trite and maybe a bit of a cliche, but their life is actually waiting for them. Their success is waiting for them. It's really hard, if not impossible, to get this idea across in your own head. Let me give you can I give you a quick example?
Please.
Growing up, I was always afraid I was afraid of everything growing up. I was afraid of playing music. I was afraid of learning how to play a musical instrument. I wanted to be in band in high school, but I was too afraid, so I didn't join it. I wanted to pick up a guitar. I picked up a guitar when I was 12 for 2 days and realized this was going to be too hard. I'm going to make mistakes. Mistakes are not acceptable. 97 is a failing grade. And I put it down. When I was about 32 years old, I picked up a harmonica. I picked up a harmonica because I wanted to learn how to play the guitar. Now you tell me what that logic is all about.
Yeah.
Right. But the thinking was, let me pick up the harmonica because it seems simple and I'll psychologically prepare myself to pick up the guitar. Well, I found out that the harmonica is not simple and I got addicted to it. So I just loved playing the harmonica. And then about 8 or 9 years later, I started playing the guitar. What happens when you pursue your vision, your joys, your love? And this is something no one tells you, and they may not even be able to fully tell you anyway, is that it's not until you start, it's not until you get inside that movement, start going, whoo, 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 on the harmonica,
yes,
that you can even start to see the possibilities.
Yeah.
And when I started playing the harmonica, I started listening to music. Oh, harmonica in that song. I never knew that. I never recognized it because it's that old game of you buy a new car, you drive off the lot, and when you're driving down the road, you start seeing all the same model of that new car you just bought.
Right.
All right. And so we have to, when we start something new, our eyes will start seeing that thing everywhere. And then people will rise up to conspire with us for our success.
Bingo. I'm right there with you. So what do you say to someone who doesn't maybe have that support, maybe doesn't have that encouragement, mentorship, teachers, etc.? Is it possible to do it alone?
So the short answer is it's possible. This phrase is always stuck in my head. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with other people. So yes, it's possible. And all these things that you want require some discipline. But if you're not wired to go after it in the first place, if you feel like you're not wired to go after it, then other people will help you on that journey, right? And the other thing is, just go do things that scare the hell out of you. And number two, go find the people who know how to do the thing that you want to do. Go find them, because your mother, your father, your best friend telling you, oh, you can't do that, you'll never be they don't know. They haven't done the thing you want to do. Why are you listening to them? Go find out who plays the harmonica, where do they hang out, and go make some lousy garbage noise on your harmonica, because that's what's required at the beginning.
Was there one person along the way that maybe is a reference point where you keep going back to that? It could have been happened in your childhood or anywhere along the way that told you and really believed in you. And maybe whenever you're stuck, you go back to that reference point.
Yeah, there are two guys in particular. One is a boss that I had in my 20s who required that I start speaking at conferences. That scared the daylights out of me. I was absolutely petrified of public speaking. It's ironic that I make my living public speaking now. And he said, go speak at that conference. And I would go and bomb and be horrible. And then he'd say, okay, go do it again. Go do it again. Go do it again. Because once you do it enough times, once you do something enough times, you start to understand the rules of the game and the internal logic of that thing you're trying to do. But you can't understand those things from the outside. You can't understand those things until you start. The second guy was a general in the Soviet police. I lived in Russia for almost 10 years, and I had, by a total fluke, an internship in the Organized Crime Control Department of the Soviet National Police. And the guy who was my supervisor, this general, his name is Gennady, he showed me what the philosophical principles look like in action. He showed me what integrity looks like in action, in real life.
By his example?
By his example, yeah. But he showed me what commitment looks like in real life. I had an office across the hall from his. He said, come into my office anytime you want and hang out. And I would watch how he interacted with everybody. I would spend a lot of time at his house and in his apartment, and I would watch how he interacted with his family. And this guy was Robert De Niro, Leroy Jethro Gibbs from NCIS. Yeah. He was a man's man and a cop's cop and a badass. And, he was just the man. And he was more grounded and more principled, perhaps more than anyone I ever met. And he was talented and smart and successful. That was an eye-opener. That was what started opening my eyes around 23, 24 years old about the role that we can play in our lives and in the lives of other people.
Joe, would you say that in order to gain the respect and the credibility of leadership, you must lead by example?
Absolutely. You can't do otherwise. If you have a leader who's doing all the wrong things, how you're going to get one of two things. You're going to get people who will follow him and learn the bad habits and repeat those things. And I've seen that happen. Or you're going to get people that don't follow and shut down. And the organization starts spinning out of control in either one of those situations. Then, you get burnt out, you get tired, you get fed up, you don't want to come to work, all these different effects.
You have a catchphrase that you've used in most, if not all, of your books, get the nerve. Explain that.
Yeah, so it started when I started traveling to the Soviet Union. My friends would say, "Where do you get the nerve to go there? We'd be too scared." And then I started thinking about it, and I saw some scenes on television where a mother said to her child, "Where do you get the nerve to think you can be a doctor? No one in this family's ever been a doctor." And that phrase just kept bouncing around in my head, because the message that we get from other people very often, and the message we get from ourselves, is, you're not good enough. What makes you think you can do that? Oh, those people are so smart. You're not that smart. What makes you think you can do that? And the fact of the matter is that every single one of those people started out not knowing something. And they dug in and they figured out how to do it, and they persevered. If there's only one thing for people to remember, is perseverance is the key. It's not talent. It really isn't talent. And it's not about how wealthy your parents are. And it really isn't even about what school you went to. And to a large extent, it's probably not even about your education. I run into so many people who want to be speakers, and they look at me and they say, "Well, I don't have a PhD." I said, "You know what? Let go of that thought. Because my PhD, as far as I can tell, doesn't figure anywhere in to why people hire me. They hire me for energy, they hire me for story, they hire me for influence and touching the audience, but they don't really care about the PhD."
That's true. It's true. And, now, think about it. If you were a speaker 50 years ago, there was no internet, there was no YouTube, there were no websites. You had to literally, people watch you do in person what you do. But look at all the tools that we have. And the same thing with learning. You can learn anything by going and finding and digging. There's a great proverb. It's a Chinese proverb that I love. And translated, it says, "The work will show you how." And I think that's what you're talking about.
Absolutely. I love that. And the other thing, just now you've got Chinese proverbs in my head. So the work will show you how. And after you do the work, and after you have a moment, right? After you have glory or victory or whatever, the other Chinese proverb is cut wood, carry water. Like, what do you do after that? You go back to your basics. You go back to cutting wood and carrying water. You're not becoming a different person because of all your money. You're not becoming a different person because of all your fame.
Right.
Let's hope you're not. You go back to the basics of carrying water, chopping wood, and keeping that kind of harmony inside yourself. I heard something recently that was super powerful. And it was something like, the challenge that we have is to move from our identity to our essence. And that's not to say get rid of your personality and everything about you, but to take that fear and take the things that you don't like about yourself or your bad habits and move to get the best out of you, your best self, your bigger self, to really show and share who you really are without the affect and the posturing and all the rest of it.
You said something earlier about making a decision, and when you do get to that point where you decide, the universe conspires toward your success. isn't it also true, at least this is what I've found, that once you have that vision, once you see and you think to yourself, you know what, I think I can do this. I think I'm onto something here. People show up in your life. Has that happened to you?
I can't tell you how many times it's happened to me. It's happened to me in remarkable and mind-boggling ways. That people, I mean, it just happened again. I mean, I'm going out tomorrow night to play at a bar on the harmonica with a guy that I met through a guy,
Yeah.
who plays music, and it's just always the bottom line for me is this: you have to stay open.
Yes.
The place that I met this guy that I'm playing with tomorrow night, I met him on Thanksgiving at a friend's house, and I didn't want to go. And I was this close to not going. It's like, well, it would be easier to stay home. It's raining outside. I'm tired. All these excuses that we have all the time for anything. Sure. And I always found that if I put the excuses aside and just go do it, because I don't know what's waiting. I don't know what's waiting tomorrow night at the bar. I don't know what's waiting at my friend's Thanksgiving dinner. I don't know how I might be able to help somebody. Somebody might be able to help me, or together we can start playing music together, whether that means actual music or the two things that we're passionate about that we can share, put together, and make bigger. Because when you get into this game, you realize that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 anymore. 1 + 1 equals 32 million.
Yes.
And you start creating things that didn't exist before.
And don't you find that having that, what could possibly happen in a positive way, is also part of our inner child?
Mm. Yeah. It's funny you say that, because part of this process, you asked me earlier, how do people go about, getting through fear and dealing with all that? Part of the process for me was I came across a photograph of me at 6 years old that I hadn't seen in decades. And I had to stop and think, and I was 40 years old at the time. What was that 6-year-old thinking? What was he dreaming about? Who did he want to be? And I also wanted to know what happened along the way.
Yeah.
What decisions did he make that set me on this course? Forget about all the people in my life that I want to blame, or I spend years blaming, or that your audience may be blaming at this moment. It doesn't have to do with any of that. It has to do with, who was that kid? Look, being an adult, I think, is overrated. And I think growing older is kind of overrated. And I think the world needs us to be our kid's self. That's what I think about when I look at you. I look at you, I see this guy who's so happy and so playful, professional in what you do. I'm not talking about being silly and juvenile, but being playful and childlike within the parameters of your professional life. I've seen you speak. It's so wonderful. And so can we make that connection back to our child?
Wow. Coming from you, it's an incredible compliment. But I've always thought that way, just as you have your mission and where you see yourself and how great you are at getting leaders to become true leaders and the true essence of themselves. I feel like my part of my mission is to give people permission to let the child inside of them come out and play, because it's there. I do a lot of impressions, and I do these cartoon voices, and inevitably after I speak, these grown men will come and they'll say, listen to this. And they'll do these voices, and it's inside all of us. And sometimes we need a Joe Serio or a Sonny Melendrez to say, hey, it's okay. Come on. And this is going to be cool. We're going to have fun.
Yeah. When I started speaking, I saw, I'd look out over the audience and I'd see the man in the front row with a big gray beard and a grizzled look on his face and his arms folded like this, and a scowl. And invariably, that turns out to be the softest guy in the room. And he waits for everyone to leave, like you just said, like, hey, let me tell you this voice.
Yeah.
Or he comes up to me and says, when you said that thing about growing up, I just wanted to cry. And the voice in my head is thinking, you grumpy looking, hardened, growly, grouchy guy wanted to cry. And the thing that I discovered is I don't care what you look like on the outside, because most of the time, those people that a lot of us kind of dismiss along the way, those are people that are also looking for permission. They're looking for a safe space to express some of the things their fears of growing older, their fears of not being able to keep up with the younger generation, their fears around technology, their fears around whatever. And if you can find a different way to talk to them than everyone else around you has been talking to them, they will open up and they will thank you for being gentle with their fears. And they will start to see possibility for their life that they either never experienced or they believe they had shut off so long ago that they were just counting the days to retirement, and they were just going to drift off on their own into the dark corner.
Brilliant. Well, Joe, I want to thank you very much for this visit. I feel like I should you should give me a bill for the for the counseling. But I want to say to you that it's just so fantastic that you don't have any parameters as far as what's next. And the books that you've written certainly speak to that. And you're just a wonderful example of how we can truly be our true selves and let go of all those man-made fears.
Well, Sonny, I appreciate that. That means a lot. And we could very easily start a mutual admiration society here.
I think we have.
The last thing I want to say to folks in the audience is, you can wring your hands. You can be scared. Be scared. Be afraid. But just keep doing it at the same time. The fear doesn't go away. As you move up and up and up, it's just different fears pop up. So don't let it paralyze you the way I let it paralyze me.
Well said. Wow, was that powerful? That's my visit with Joe Serio. You'll find links to his website, Facebook, Instagram, and more by visiting sonnyradio.com/show. That's sonnyradio.com/show. Until next time, I'm Sonny Melendrez, and I leave you with the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, "Do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain." Bye-bye.